So we're chipping away at our Slant 6 build, and yesterday I went and I dressed down the crank. And all I did with this is just take off like any extraneous casting flash, and I rounded all of the sharp edges, especially into the leading edge as the crank is spinning. And the reason I did that is because oil, at high RPM, oil has a consistency of like a golf ball, and it slings off of the crankshaft as it's spinning in like rope forms. So as the crank is spinning, it has to fight through these, that's windage, and it has to fight through these ropes, and it causes resistance against the crank. So by rounding all of the edges, by taking down all of the sharp edges, the crank doesn't have to cut those ropes, it has to just kind of move them out of the way. What is this worth? Nothing. You'll not see this, like if you were to take this engine before and after you do this and run it on a dyno, you wouldn't see any difference. Half a horsepower, if that. But then why bother? It's because there are some universal principles, some universal laws that apply to every mechanical thing that you do. And what I'm doing here is exercising a combination of the Pareto principle and the tipping point. So the Pareto principle is this. So this was discovered by an Italian, not discovered, it was first documented by an Italian economist named Pareto back in the 1800s. And it's also known as the law of the vital few. And the Pareto principle is that 80% of your results are going to come from 20% of your effort. So in other words, if you do 10 things, only 2 of those things are going to net you 80%. This works all through nature. It's not just economics, it's everything. And it's not always exactly 80-20. Sometimes it's 95-5. Sometimes it's 60-40. But it averages out to 80-20, and it applies. If I do 10 videos, 2 of those videos are going to net me 80% of the positive results. Positive views, income, subscribers. That's how it works. And applying it to an engine, think of it this way. Think of all of the hundreds of steps that are involved in rebuilding an engine. From first opening the hood and taking it out, you go even further before that, diagnosing the problem or planning it out, opening the hood, unbolting the motor, taking it apart, cleaning all the parts, going through all of the steps necessary. Out of all of those steps, the ones that net you the biggest results are where you're putting the rings on the pistons, the new rings on the pistons, you're putting the new bearings in it, you're putting the camshaft in it, and doing all of that. That's the Pareto principle in effect. 20% of the job that you're doing is going to result in 80% of the results. So the key to this, working with this idea, is that you can't skip any steps. You need to do the 10 steps to get the 2 that net your results. If you go 100 steps, you'll get 20 that net your results. If you go 1,000 steps, you'll get 200 that'll net your results. Pretty soon you're talking big numbers. Now, working with the Pareto principle is one that's borrowed from sociology, called the tipping point. Now, the tipping point, the essence of the tipping point, is that small changes, while in and of themselves don't make a difference, enough of those small changes reach a tipping point and you start to get results. So, it's in essence, I took just this slice off here, and it means 0. And then I took this slice off of here, it still kind of means 0. And then I kept going through the crank, I kept working through the crank. And each one of these things, in and of itself, means 0. But when you take them all, you start to get net effect. Now, if you take this principle, this idea here of working through every edge, every detail, through the entire engine, through the entire project, that's where you reach the tipping point, where all of these micro improvements add up and give you the desired results. What are the desired results? What is it going to run? Well, that's where you run into the third universal law, the law of attraction, which may or may not jive with your particular belief systems, but it can actually be broken down in very simple terms. If I focus on the results, if I say I'm going to build this car and it's going to go 1099, right? Or 1150 or whatever. If I focus only on that goal, I won't focus on all of the steps it takes to get me there. So before I can run the ET that I want, I have to first get the car down the track. Before I get the car down the track, I have to be able to do a burnout with it. Before I can do a burnout with it, I have to get it to the track. Before I can get it to the track, I have to put a basic tune-up on it, get it up and set it up and running. Before I can do that, I have to assemble it. Before I have to, and you can take that all the way back to when you first sit down and contemplate a project. So in essence, by anticipating the end result, what you'll do is skip or shortchange all of the steps to get you there, and therefore you'll push that net result away from yourself. You make it even more difficult to achieve the number. I have an idea what it should run based on power, the calculated power, weight. You go to any power weight calculator, quarter mile stats calculator, and you get an idea what it should run on paper. But you don't want to focus on that. You don't even want to think about that. What's it going to run? I don't know. All I know is I have to get this crank into that block, and that block is getting the same exact treatment as this. All these little cumulative effects. And hopefully it nets me the result. Not so much that I desire. You don't want to desire something, you push it away. And that you don't want to expect it. It gets you the results that you will be satisfied with. Take this, brother. May it serve you well. See you tomorrow.